You ready?
Ready.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Bookworms. It's the show where we read a book and then talk about that book. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Joe.
How you doing, Joe?
Doing good. I hope you're enjoying the background music, Alex. We have a Christian rock fest playing in the fairgrounds, and they pointed the stage right at our house.
Yeah, all you listeners, notify us in the Spotify comments what you think of the Christian band playing behind us.
You can hear that bass thumping and that drum pumping it up, huh?
I am all about that bass, and I feel lifted up. And the book we chose today is...
It's going to bring you right back down.
It's going to bring you right back down. We got some nice religious themes going in here, so this is just the perfect setup for what we got going on here on our debut novel, Season 2.
So, Alex, I wanted to say something here.
Go ahead.
So, I don't know how true this still is, but most podcasts end before 20 episodes. We're coming up on close to 30 now, I think. So, go us.
Man, I'm so proud of us.
Yeah.
Do the bonus episodes count?
They count. They're episodes. Even the intro episode counts.
Oh, God, please don't say that's true. I don't need that looming over my head.
No, it's really the Neil Gaiman thing that's looming over your head right now, that book and his current situation.
Yeah, we're not going to go there.
Come on, Alex, you seem to pick all the authors that have problems.
At least I knew about Sherman Alexie beforehand. This one just kind of, they dropped on me like, by the way, this guy too. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, it is a shame. Anyways, you picked another one with quite the history.
Yeah, he is lucky he died before he got canceled. But yeah, so this is our Season 2 first book that we chose, or that I chose. It's a My Choice book.
Yeah, everyone get cringed up now because it's a bad one.
Yeah, we're gonna. This one might have definitely a parental advisory attached to it.
And Alex said The Liar was bad, and then we read this one, and I'm just like, Alex, what the fuck?
Hey, in my defense, The Liar was bad.
Yeah, but you preach this book like it was something good. I mean, come on.
Yeah, on rereading it, I'm like, wow, this is not held up at all. I read this book in college, and I was like, wow, mind blown. This is so shocking, so unbelievably cool, so well written. And it's still well written, but it
is well written.
Yeah, it has, I think definitely the plot has faded as the public zeitgeist has changed.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yes.
So, since we've buried the lead on this one, Alex, why don't we tell the people what book you chose?
All right. I chose a book by an author who I didn't hear about until after he died. And the way I heard about him was I was watching Ron White. Do you know the comedian Ron White?
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Alex, that should have been a hint that you should not read this author.
Yeah,
Ron White's mentioning him.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and steal the joke now because I looked it up. He said Pulitzer Prize-winning author Norman Mailer died last year at the age of 84 years old. For the last 60 years of this man's life, he drank to excess every day. He was married 6 times, he smoked pot, he stabbed his second wife, and I've never read one of his books, but I gotta tell you, I'm a huge fan.
As I said, that joke right there, Alex, should have warned you enough that it's like, maybe not this book.
Yeah. And then I actually read some of his books. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So the author's Norman Mailer. He's probably one of the great writers of the 40s through the 60s. He wrote until he died in like 2007. He wrote up until the day he died. But I think he had a couple books kind of smattered through. He really hit it big with his debut novel, The Naked and the Dead, which is considered one of like the great World War II novels. He also won a Pulitzer Prize for
how come we didn't read that first one?
I don't know. It's really long.
Okay, so we're going off of length here for your season 2, if I recall.
Yeah. I chose a lot of short books for season 2. I got a busy schedule to keep up. But yeah, he also he wrote a really great true crime novel called The Executioner's Song, which he won the Pulitzer Prize for. Very well done. This book is still one of his better known ones. This book is
very infamous.
Yeah, An American Dream.
And it was a nightmare to read.
It sure was. Rereading Norman Mailer, like, I don't know if you kind of remember the conversation we had about Anthony Burgess, about how pretentious he was in his writing.
Yeah.
Norman Mailer is pretty much the American Anthony Burgess with how just absolutely pretentious he is.
I could see that.
I've read a lot of his nonfiction. Like he does a lot of like that. I don't want to call it gonzo journalism, but like firsthand accounts of, especially he was like really big into politics, so a lot of big political movements in the 60s and 70s. Not that there were a lot of political movements in the 60s and 70s. Who would have thunk it? But he's just very outspoken in his beliefs and very quick to, I'd say he's quick to call out like criticisms and observations of what other people are doing, but he often failed to propose logical solutions to those issues. So he was,
or look in the mirror and see his own actions as a problem.
yeah, like especially like I mean, there's been books written about like his treatment of women in fiction and
in real life.
Yeah, and in real life, because like you rereading this, I'm like, wow, these women are not characters; they are objects throughout this whole book. And
yeah,
it's it gets kind of gross in some areas. We'll go into the nitty gritty details.
Alex will make sure to read all those parts, especially for you ladies.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Let's just say there are 3 female characters, and the main character has sex with all 3 of them. It's great.
Yeah. And so don't most of the other characters, too, apparently.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, American Dream. It's about a well-known man named Stephen Rojak. He's a war hero. He's a former congressman, and he's a television personality, a very successful man.
Professor.
Yeah, a professor as well. Nobody cares about academics. What are you talking about?
It's what's making him money and keeping him.
Yeah, he's very well-to-do. He's a well-known man. He's upper rich class kind of guy, bourgeois.
And he's batshit crazy.
Yeah, and he's absolutely batshit crazy. He's obsessed with the moon and the powers that are harbored in the moon, which I think is kind of an echo of Norman Mailer's own beliefs. He had some really weird beliefs throughout his life. He was also like really against anything made of plastic, which I don't know.
Well, he wasn't wrong with that one.
Yeah, partially explains why he doesn't. Well, partially explains why he had so many children, but
that explains that too.
But yeah, it's just,
I think the 6 wives probably helped with that also.
Yeah, probably that too. But yeah, like I don't know, Stephen Rojak in the book. It's like you read it and you're like, wow, this is just Norman Mailer changing his name, and like this is me as a character.
Yeah. And I guess because it takes place in the 60s, so the whole moon thing and kind of front edge of the whole hippie movement, where it takes place. So you kind of place it like, okay, yeah, this kind of fits.
Yeah, and like he opens up with like meeting JFK like early in their lives, and JFK was a big proponent of the space race and all that stuff. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of links back to just lunar cycles and the power it has over people, and like the way he behaves, especially during the nighttime, is especially concerning. It's called An American Dream. I think Norman Mailer's goal for this book was to kind of showcase that the American dream of being this well-known, self-made, successful guy isn't really all it's made up to be.
He kind of deconstructed the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's him just
tore it down and pissed all over it.
Yeah, that's him just like breaking down something but not proposing an alternative solution, kind of thing. Because it's like he's like, this is shit, and you're like, all right, what isn't shit then? And I don't know.
Yeah, it's all shit. The whole thing is shit, but no matter what you do, it's just more shit. So
yeah, so
you might as well just murder your wife.
Yep. Speaking of which, Chapter 1, The Cycles of the Moon. Stephen Rojak murders his wife. But yeah, go ahead.
It's a very toxic relationship. Like, I don't want to say she deserved it, but I mean, one of them had to die because they were really toxic for each other, and you could see that one of them was going to murder the other one, no matter what. Yeah, if these were real people, that this was going to end badly. This is going to be a domestic.
Yeah, it was gonna. Yeah, this thing was doomed from the start. Just even the way, like, I don't know, I haven't even read the back of the book, but you get the gist of the thing. Like, Stephen's very much he's more of like a physical kind of person. He's just chasing the pleasures of the flesh, and he's trying to bed women, and he's trying to become rich and successful, and it just kind of backfires because it renders him almost incapable of being attuned to his inner thoughts and his inner feelings and what he actually wants, and he's chasing that American dream, which doesn't really factor in the human condition and wanting what the heart wants.
Sure, we'll go with that.
But yeah, I'll read the back of the novel and then we'll dive into this thing. Stephen Rojak is a decorated war hero, a former congressman, and a certified public intellectual with his own television show. He is also married to the very rich, very beautiful, and utterly amoral Deborah Coughlin Kelly. But one night, in the prime of his existence, he hears the moon talking to him on the terrace of a fashionable New York high-rise, and is urging him to kill himself. It is almost as a defense against that infinitely seductive voice that Rojak murders his wife. In this wild battering ram of a novel, talk about pretentious, am I right? Which was originally published to vast controversy in 1965, Norman Mailer creates a character who might be a fictional precursor to the philosopher-killer he would later profile in The Executioner's Song. Remember that? I mentioned that earlier. Oh, I'm so smart. As Rojak runs amok through the city, in which he was once a privileged citizen, Mailer peels away the layers of our social norms to reveal a world of pure appetite and relentless cruelty. Sensual, horrifying, and informed by a vision as one part Nietzsche, one part de Sade, and one part Charlie Parker, an American dream grabs the reader by the throat and refuses to let go. I like the pun there about grabbing by the throat, because that's how his wife gets killed.
Yeah. I don't know. Kind of comparing him to some big names there, aren't they?
Yeah, just like the I don't know, wildly mocked and criticized philosophers Nietzsche and de Sade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nietzsche died friendless and alone and penniless, and de Sade,
and all of his books were about basically him being unable to get the woman.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, and everyone knows about de Sade. So, all right. So, Harbors of the Moon, Chapter 1. We meet Rojak. He kind of gives us a little, a resume of all the things he's accomplished in life.
We get the feeling very fast that he's unreliable as a narrator.
Oh, he's 100% an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, he basically admits, I'm crazy as like howling at the moon kind of crazy.
Yeah,
because he basically howls at the moon.
Yeah, and this is it's almost like a just like a way of showing his character without actually showing it. He immediately starts this novel by name dropping. I met Jack Kennedy in November of 1946. Like, that's how the book starts. First sentence. It's like, okay, so you met JFK 20 years before he was president. Great.
Yeah, right after the war.
And I don't know if I'll read the thing, but he starts getting into his war efforts and things like that, and like how he once had to kill 4 Germans by himself. And I think that's almost like the start of his psyche, like kind of leads into everything, because it's almost like this undiagnosed or untreated PTSD that comes from the horrors of war that's now like taken away his ability to feel things.
See, I took it as either he's making it up, because most veterans that do that don't tell that story, or...
Well, he tells it on page 2.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like, so that's what I'm saying. It's like, or, it happened, but he's using that as an excuse to why he is the way he is now. Not that it made him that, that was the start of what made him the way he is now, but that's just his justifications for what he does.
Yeah, and he's, I don't know, Rojak is definitely like this sociopath where he's definitely, like, even though he's the one doing a lot of the awful things in this book, he's still like trying to portray himself as the victim in the story.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's Mailer's biggest mistake in this book, is he makes the main character just wildly unlikable. Like by page 3, I'm like, this guy sucks. My God.
It took you that long?
Yeah. But yeah, like he kind of gives a resume. He's like, yeah, I built up this career. I was a war hero, congressman, television personality, acclaimed professor. Very rich, very famous. I developed a tumultuous relationship with this woman whose father is this big crime boss. I married her, and now we are separated. And infidelity reigns supreme in this marriage.
Oh yeah, they're both screwing other people, but typical male ego. It's okay for him, but not for her, kind of thing.
Yeah,
And he feels emasculated.
yeah, and they're both alcoholics and bitter towards each other.
It's just very toxic. It's you get the feeling that if he didn't kill her, she would have killed him, or had someone kill him for her.
Yeah, and the biggest trigger, like, and the back of the book says, like, the moon's telling him to kill himself, but really the thing that in reality triggers it is she asks him for a divorce, and he kills her for it.
Pretty much.
Like, he can't handle that hit to his ego that someone would leave him, so he murders her. The strangulation scenes, like, I don't know, it's particularly well written, but I gotta say, like, Norman Mailer is a fantastic writer. Like, there's a reason he's considered one of the biggest writers of his generation, because he can really spin words very well. You get sucked into it.
If I can give you a quote, or you can give it for the people if you'd like.
Sure.
Page 8 to 9, they're the 2 paragraphs. I'll hand you my copy since they're different.
Okay.
The highlighted section. And I said it would kind of give you the idea of his writing style and the tone of the book.
It's almost like conversational, but it's also full of, like, flowery prose. Not quite purple prose, which is bad, but like, he uses adjectives very well and metaphor to enhance his writing. But it says here, I had a bad year this last year, and for a while it got very bad. I may as well admit that for the first time in my life I had come to understand there was suicide in me. Murder I had known was there for a long time. It was the worst of discoveries, this suicide. Murder, after all, has exhilaration within it. I do not mean it as a state to entertain. The tension which develops in your body makes you sicken over a period. And I had had my fill of walking about with a chest full of hatred and a brain jammed to burst. But there is something manly about containing your rage. It is so difficult. It is like carrying a 200-pound safe up a cast-iron hill. The exhilaration comes, I suppose, from possessing such strength. Besides, murder offers the promise of vast relief. It is never unsexual. But there is little which is sexual about suicide. It is a lonely landscape with the pale light of a dream, and something is calling to you, a voice on the wind. Certain nights I would go leaden with dread because I could hear the chamber music tuning up and near to pitch. Yes, murder sounds like a symphony in your head, and suicide is a pure quartet. I was approaching my 44th year, but for the first time I knew why some of my friends, and so many of the women I had thought I understood, could not bear to be alone at night.
So yeah,
it's a great pull quote you chose there. It shows
you're
that,
you're welcome, Alex.
Yeah. It shows that great loneliness that he has in his life. And
Well, as I said, it basically sets the whole tone for the book there, and it kind of explains what's going to, his motivations and what's about to come.
yeah, like, it's almost like he's taking his own, like, self-hatred and projecting it onto other people.
Yeah, and so basically why instead of committing suicide, he kills his wife, because it's that great release. Because then immediately after he kills his wife, he bangs the maid.
Yeah, when I read this book for a class, we did it was like a split semester. Like, one semester we did Hemingway, the next semester we did Mailer, and the professor had the funniest joke for this. He's like, "This always happens after you murder your wife. You go downstairs and you catch your maid masturbating." But yeah, he goes downstairs. He sees the maid is having some private
German
time.
immigrant.
Yeah, German immigrant, and he just kind of comes into the room and has his way with her.
He basically forces himself upon her, but it makes it sound like he's this demigod in bed, and goes from kind of a forced thing to whatever depraved thing he can think of to doing to her.
Yeah, it becomes this, like, metaphorical battle between heaven and hell, the way he does it, because he's alternating between
front door and back door.
Yeah, front door and back door. So, the front door is heaven and the back door is hell. And he's, like, being forced to choose. Like, he's just committed this murder, and he's kind of, like, choosing, like, am I going to do the right thing and the wrong thing? But as he's performing this action, and at the end he chooses the devil, and completes
completes the deed in the back door.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
as
And like
PG as we're gonna make it for this one, folks.
Yeah.
So be prepared.
Yeah. And like the maid is such a weird character. She's literally there just to like be like say whatever, like be this like sounding board for him. Because like the whole time he's calling her a Nazi, and like at the end she calls him this like god in bed, and it's like, how would your wife ever get mad at you, kind of thing. It's like ego boosting comments, and she doesn't know that her mistress is dead and all these things, and
so she acts stupid, but then when she comes back later in the book, it all sounds like she's this super spy.
Yeah,
and
she's
you're like, so what was that whole first chapter about? Because basically you don't understand what her whole thing is.
Yeah, I think her motive is described as she's trying to, like, she's a spy for Deborah.
Yeah.
The wife's name is Deborah. Deborah's father. She's so because like her father and Deborah are estranged, so like the maid is there to spy on Deborah and report back to the father, and like she's
in love with the father and hoping that he'll marry her. But I would think that seeing your person you're spying on, who happens to be your employer's daughter, getting murdered, having sex with a guy that murdered her, would kind of put a kibosh to future plans with your employer.
Yeah, well, she didn't know that she was dead at the time.
No, but she knew shortly thereafter, and
Yeah.
she was smart enough to put two and two together.
Yeah, she was smart
and
enough
so
to
cover
figure it out.
cover for Rojak.
Yeah, because Rojak eventually comes up and he goes back upstairs to where the body is, and he kind of cleans it up a little bit and throws it out a window, so it looks like Deborah committed suicide.
Which helped with the fact that a mob boss's car the body dropped right in front of the car, and then they proceeded to run over it, destroying most of the evidence.
Yeah, things get really complicated from there for poor Steven here.
Yeah, but so body's down there. Steven kind of takes his time, kind of getting himself put back together while he celebrates and falls apart at the same time, and he goes down eventually to say, "Yeah, that's my wife. I'll claim the body. Let's move this along, boys."
He takes a minute to come up with his story, put it all together. He lets the maid know, like, oh, she's just jumped out the window, and that sort of thing. And then it becomes
because he's saying, "Oh, I'm gonna leave the wife for the maid. We're gonna run away together." And it was so good in bed that the maid just kind of goes along with it.
Yeah, and the story for a little while takes the tone of like a noir, almost like this mystery crime story where the detectives are playing this cat and mouse game with Steven, trying to outwit him, trying to get him to say something that'll pin him with the murder, because they can tell that she wasn't.
They know that this is definitely fishy. You don't just have a high society woman jumping from a skyscraper.
And they do a quick autopsy, and they see like the
high oil,
pure signs of strangulation. Even though the car crash, destroys her body, like it doesn't take away like the fact that her larynx was crushed in,
or that she had been dead for several hours already.
Yeah. He's that's him bragging about himself. It's like, yeah, it took several hours.
But yeah, so there's quite the scene with a battle of wits between the main cop, I forget his name, and Rojak, and basically it's a back and forth of a cop that's kind of just sick of life and sick of dealing with these high society people, and knows that I know you. He basically tells Rojak, "I know you did it. The only thing I can do is get you to admit you did doing it, because otherwise, in a short while here, I'm going to have no access to you."
Yeah,
and Rojak just bullshitting his way out of it.
Yep, he just he comes up with a story about how like she was drinking and she was talking about suicide, and he tried to stop her, but in the end, he looked away for a minute and she was out the window.
Yeah, and his story does change throughout the novel.
Yeah, as they kind of start to poke holes, he has to, do the liar's thing where he makes adjustments to the story. Like he's not forthcoming about his time with the maid to start with, and which
he had planned for that one. He said, that would be good way to, they're looking for us hiding something, so therefore if I'm hiding this, they'll stop looking any deeper.
Yeah, and they're like trying to use the maid against him because she was in the building as well, so they're also questioning her and trying to say she's saying all these things and trying to get him to crack and be like, fine. It's like, all right, I did it.
And then they tried the good cop, bad cop thing, and that doesn't really work. And Rojak the whole time was all he's thinking about was like, I need a drink, I need a whiskey, I need to drown my thoughts out because I'm running too high right now.
Yep, he's got the shakes, and I think the adrenaline of having done two just really big deeds of killing your wife and having some wild passionate intercourse, that's finally wearing down, and he's got the shakes, and he needs some sort of escape because he's realizing what he's actually done and he needs to get away from it. Yeah.
And so he gets out of it.
Yeah, eventually the cops can't hold him anymore, even if he is a person of interest. They can't really just keep him.
Yeah, they threatened us, don't leave town, even though they know that's meaningless. And
I know we don't give legal advice, but don't talk to the cops.
Ask for a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's not really legal advice. That's just common sense.
Yes. Especially if you did kill your wife.
Whether you did it or not, they're going to blame you for doing it, whether you ask for a lawyer or not. So just be smart and find someone that actually knows the law, and let's tell you how to say something.
Yeah. But I like that battle of wits between the cop's name is Roberts and Rojak. It was a cool battle of wits because they're both clearly very intelligent and they're choosing their words wisely and they know like just what to say to get to the other person, but the other person's smart enough to not let it get to them. And eventually Rojak wins out in that battle of wits, and he goes to a nightclub where he meets
after you kill your wife, shag the maid, have a big long interview with the cops. What are you going to do, Alex?
You
going to go to bed? Oh, seriously.
Nightclub, grab whiskey, and fall in love with this lounge singer.
Yeah, the has-been lounge singer that's just past their prime and doesn't have a voice and is dating the mob boss's nephew.
Yep, and that is how we meet Cherry.
So yeah, Cherry, is she redhead? I believe she's a redhead.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, she said she can't sing. She's got crow's feet on her eyes, and she's a ripe old age of 27.
Oh my God.
I mean, he's like, as Rojak, who just turned 44, mind you, is saying, oh man, she's basically used up.
Yeah, well, he's in the prime of life. Yeah. But yeah, so like they hit it off real quick.
Yeah, she tries to get Rojak into a fight with her one of her boyfriend's goons, and he manages to talk his way out of it and take her back to her place.
Yeah, well, it's not to her place. It's like to like a secret place where her sister used to live.
Yeah, well, it's her place because that's where her husband also goes to meet up with her.
Yeah, which I believe her sister died from overdose, something like that. I
believe so, yes.
And so yeah, we get a lot of Cherry backstory. She's a cool character. I like Cherry.
She was something, all right.
Yeah, she's really the only female character where you're like, okay, she's not just like this object. Like there might actually be something behind her other than being the object of Rojak's affection. It's probably one of the reasons Rojak falls for her.
Okay, so I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
For you, Alex. This is right when they're leaving the bar and going back to her place. It's kind of is, I'll read you the quote. You say you're afraid, she said. Do you mean women? There comes a moment when I don't believe I belong in them. You don't? I was close to telling her something. I had not told anyone else. I wouldn't want to make too much of it, I said. I did not go on to say that when I was in bed with a woman, I rarely felt as if I were making life, but rather as if I were a pirate sharpening up a raid on life. And so somewhere inside myself, yes, there, was a large part of the fear. I had dread of the judgment which must rest behind the womb of a woman. A small perspiration came out along my back. Is he making it sound like allegory to being gay?
There's a possibility. There's definitely some subtext in there.
Yeah, it definitely came off of him as like, so he's afraid of women, and he's definitely afraid of the whole baby making thing, but it's like, especially after he's having that battle with himself, banging the maid, front door, back door, and decides for the back door. It's like maybe he is more into the feminine men than, because also the maid also wasn't exactly a hot, but she was severe, like what kind of the character of that female Nazi SS type person.
Masculine features.
Yeah, masculine. Where that's kind of what I gathered, just the way that he was portraying her. Whether that was true or not, who knows? But
yeah, there's definitely some room for, I think, discussion on whether Rojak is deeply closeted, because
I mean, it is the 60s.
It's the 60s. It's a time when there was, it's very, I don't know how to word it, but it was,
be offensive, Alex.
Being gay in the 60s was a very difficult thing to be, and often people did not explore that side of themselves when they had those feelings, and a lot of Rojak's actions and his treatment towards women could be a result of some deep-seated, unrealized feelings.
Okay, so it wasn't just me reading into it too much.
Yes.
Yes, it was, or yes, I'm not. It wasn't just me.
You bet.
Okay. But yeah, so they go back to Cherry's sometimes place, secret place.
Her hideout.
And they make glorious baby-making love, where they both decide, yeah, she's pregnant.
Yep.
Because it was just so magical, and just like fireworks going off and volcanoes erupting and planets exploding.
Yeah. This whole book takes place over the course of like one night, by the way. Like it's like a night into the morning into the following. It's about a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
This whole thing happens.
Maybe 30 hours kind of thing. So yeah, and they decide they're going to run away together and have a child, and
and
it's going to be perfect.
Yeah, before they can do that, like the cops come again. They pull Rojak in for questioning because the autopsies come back, and they found more evidence.
That's right. So they made love. He leaves, but promises to come back that night, and has this huge fight with himself about going to the ghetto to get a drink or not, and just disappear, and then he ends up going to the police station and answering more questions. And we get back to the interesting bits with Roberts. Yeah,
we get another really in-depth thing because, the autopsy's back and it showed clear signs of strangulation. So he's got to talk his way out of that. The cops, of course, are being misleading. I think Mailer, in general, was always he was respectful but also deeply critical of police officers, as he ought to be, obviously. So there was definitely, he shows like a mutual respect between Roberts and Rojak, and they know not to take each other lightly, but they also like seem to have, like, if under different circumstances they might have been friends, kind of thing.
Yeah, you never really know if that's just the cop trying to warm up to the guy to get him to talk, or if it's real, or if the cop is just so disgusted with all society, he's just like, you know what, I don't care anymore. But yeah, you definitely get that, and they're still doing the good cop, bad cop, and Roberts says, I know, yes, eventually someone's going to walk through that door and say, interview's over, and this is it. I've lost my chance. Which happens.
Yeah.
And Jack is confused, but he's like, who's backing me up? I have nobody. Because basically he has found out, I forget if on the time going to the police station, I think it was on the time going to the police station, he found out that his show got canceled. He got let go from the college, even though he's got 10 years. They can't fire him. They basically, you're going on an indefinite sabbatical.
Yeah, administrative leave.
Where I believe you're still getting paid.
Yeah, probably.
So I mean,
poor guy.
Yeah, poor guy. Yeah, poor thing. He's still making $100 grand a year. How is he going to survive?
In the 60s. Yeah. So things start falling apart pretty quick for him because it was just a high profile death like that. Yeah. And but again, the fact that he's a person of interest, it can, like, at any point, like, not even just the fact that it's the 60s and people are very tied to moral stances in that era.
It happened a few years ago.
Yeah, it can happen really anywhere, anytime.
He basically gets out from the investigation, and that's that.
Yep, he gets out, he goes back to Cherry, they make love again, and then there's a really intense... Cherry reveals that she has a husband.
which is
There's a really intense altercation
with
at that point.
The husband's a large black man that's also
It might be
singer.
Yeah.
A world-class singer that basically we find out could have been one of the top acts of the nation at the time, but had turned it down because he didn't want to be the stool pigeon of Rojak's wife.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, like, I want to call it problematic, but his portrayal in this book of that character, just everything from like the dialect that he's written in to his just completely irrational actions. He's portrayed as just a stupid, loud, angry person who's almost like a monster lesser than the calmer, more collected white people in the room. So it was a bit hard to read, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely at times it was confusing because it'd be like, okay, they're having a conversation, and all of a sudden, the husband would pull a knife and say, "I'm going to stab you," then put away the knife and pull it back out again, and it was very erratic.
Yeah, he's being portrayed as this wildly unpredictable guy.
And it was like, okay, Rojak, you literally just killed your wife, banged 2 women, lied to the cops. You're not exactly sane here, so you're not.
Yeah, like Rojak manages to like talk him down and like get out of that situation,
and then throw him down the stairs, and the guy breaks a leg or whatever, breaks some ribs.
Yep. Yeah, but we're not done seeing him, but there's one more. Rojak has to go on one more outing before he and Cherry can run away together.
Yeah, basically, Rojak has to go see his now ex-father-in-law.
Yeah, who is a crime boss.
And we find out that Cherry knows him and used to be his girlfriend.
Yep. Yeah, everything's kind of like tied together in a
Yeah,
really weird, incestuous way, and it's awkward.
Let's just say pretty much all the main characters have slept with all the women in this.
Yeah, it's like when you get to like season 7 of a sitcom and everyone slept together. It's basically that.
Yeah, which, as we'll find out shortly, is very disgusting.
Yes.
Now that we've put that tidbit in there, let's talk about his trip to go see Kelly.
Yeah, so we meet was it Deidre, Deborah's daughter from another marriage?
Yeah. So first he's got to get there, and he's debating whether he wants to go there or just go back to the bars and go have another run-in with the husband there, the singer, and start some shit and try to basically commit suicide by proxy.
Yeah.
He wants to go into black neighborhoods and start some racist shit so that they kill him. So then he basically gets out of all of his crimes.
Yeah, he's throughout the whole book. It's very much like Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky, where like the guy commits a murder and then he's just like going through these bouts of insanity throughout the book and like he would like go crazy and like fall asleep and like debate what he wants to do, and he was basically suicidal throughout the whole story.
Mailer is just hitting all the major philosophers of the 19th and 20th century, isn't he?
Oh yes. Well, he does that in 250 pages, and Crime and Punishment's like 600 pages. There you go.
Yeah, so take your wins, right?
Yeah, he meets Deidre, Deborah's daughter from another marriage. They seem to have a pretty decent relationship.
Yeah, basically the mother had abandoned the daughter, and the Rojak had kind of raised her as his own, and they had a fairly close relationship. And she's begging Rojak to take her away, even though her grandfather technically gets parental rights to her now, since basically, as everyone knows, Rojak murdered.
Yeah, it's common knowledge.
The mother. So
we forgot to mention that Rojak also does tell Cherry that he killed Deborah.
Yeah.
In their second rendezvous, and she still agrees to go off with him.
Yeah, because they're madly in love, and they're the ones for each other.
Yeah, it's very much like they're a middle-aged Romeo and Juliet, where they know each other for a day.
Yeah, but so Rojak eventually gets brought up to the Kelly, but again, along the way, he's talking to the maid, who reveals that, oh no, she's a spy and she's in love with her mistress's father, and is hoping that they can run away together. And it said just your head starts spinning, and it's like, what? And she drops him off to Kelly's office, and he's with the mob boss that had run over Deborah's corpse, and another woman who's a major powerhouse of a tycoon.
Yeah, and there's just more like battles of wits going on.
Kind of dragging at this point.
Yeah, the for like I said, it's a 250-page book, and there's definitely some slower areas.
It reads like a 600-page book,
Yeah,
like a Dostoevsky.
And there's just like so many like battles of wits. Like, do you have to outwit the drunk mob boss too? Like the sharp detective you got by him. Like, I don't know, it's just like, but like the fact that it's Deborah's father, and the most interesting thing that happens in this is Rojak is forced to go around the top of the
so he basically
mansion that
decides
they're on.
he wants to walk around a balcony ledge, and he walks out there but gets called back in before he can do it on his own. Then Kelly tells a very disgusting and disturbing story about how he raped his daughter before sending her off to a nunnery, or taking her out of the nunnery, raping the daughter, then sending her back, possibly fathering the daughter. It sounded like.
Yeah, it's he's like drunkenly confessing all of his sins to Rojak. I think as this is like a way of like he's unburdening himself because he's intending to kill Rojak because he knows Rojak killed Deborah, so he's kind of admitting his own guilt and his own foibles and his own atrocities that he committed against his own children.
Yeah, and then he makes Rojak walk the balcony edge.
Yeah, so Rojak has to do a lap. They want him to do
3 sides.
Yeah, they want to do 2 laps around. He does 1, and then
then
comes
Kelly's
up, refuses to go around again, and knocks out Kelly and gets away.
Yeah. Basically, says you got to go back because he missed his chance to knock Rojak off the edge and do the same that he did to his daughter.
Yeah, but all the while the moon is talking to Rojak again, telling him that he needs to go around twice. And after Rojak goes around once, he refuses to go around a second time. And he goes down. The moon says, the first time was for you. So, like, the first time was to go around and risk your life in that way was to save your own life. And then the moon tells him, like, if he had gone around the second time, he would have saved Cherry's life. And he gets back to Cherry, and Cherry has been beaten to death by her husband.
Yes. So there ends Cherry, and
and then Rojak just drifts off alone on a quest to Guatemala, and that's how it ends.
As you can see, it was a story.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we're recording, like, you're comparing this to The Liar and my disdain for Adrian as a character, but, like, yeah, like, I don't like Rojak as a character, but things don't end well for him. Like, he's alone and forced to, I don't know, kind of like go back to religious themes, like when Cain slew Abel, Cain wandered the land alone. That's basically what Rojak is forced to do at this point.
But it's also such a short time frame. You know, with Adrian, we're jumping forward 10, 20, 30 years, probably 20 years, 15, 20 years, and he's gone back up on top. Versus Rojak, we're looking at him, months down the road, and he's still kind of doing his thing. But like I was saying to you before, was to say he meets another pretty face and doesn't start this whole process over again of these highest highs that he's ever felt that he can remember, and then just continue the cycle. It's which is basically what it feels like. Is like he hits these cycles of depression, manic depression, where he goes crazy, does some crazy shit, and because of his status of the world, gets away with it, and then as soon as that all cools down, he starts kind of going back up on that high again, and kind of evening out before he goes completely wackadoodle. So I don't feel like he's gonna be suffering for long. I feel like he's just gonna bounce back eventually, and said he's, as far as we know, he's still getting paid by the university. He's still got money squirreled away.
Yeah, I see it as like his like that American dream has crumbled all around him. I don't think he's getting it back. I think he's
a former senator. I think he's
gonna fade away into obscurity. Like, even senators, like, they don't always come back from the things they do.
Yeah, I don't think most of them live relatively comfortably. I mean, maybe they're not as the height that they had when they were in power, but they're not hurting by any stretch. They're not scraping by, scratching by. I mean, it sounds like he's in Guatemala. And he's basically just drinking his way across the country.
I mean, odds are he's probably just going to drink himself to death, and that'll be that. Who knows? Norman Mailer only made it to 84.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is An American Dream by Norman Mailer.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Alex?
I'd originally given it 5 stars when I read this when I was like 19 and edgy. I'm probably taking it down. Like it's not like the worst book I ever read, but it's definitely, I don't know if I'm gonna revisit Mailer anytime soon. It's I don't know, I think it's definitely dated. You read it and you're like, this book is from the 60s, and like I don't think it's like, I don't know, he got compared a lot in his career to like writers like Hemingway and stuff. Like Hemingway is timeless in his writing, whereas this is very much a dated kind of story that we read, whether it's well written or not. Like it was like, yeah, these like that masculine toxic kind of character. Use toxic as a whatever. These masculine characters that are almost like more self-destructive than anything. Like I think that's kind of gone by the wayside. So this is more of a relic of an era rather than as like a timeless story.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brutal read. The style of writing is not something I normally enjoy. You can always tell a book that's written in like this time frame. You know, this style of writing. It's definitely got its way. We saw it when we read Greatest Thing Since Sliced Bread too. It's just the dated writing style that we don't really see anymore. That was in the very like the 20th century.
Like Sliced Bread used a lot of different the writing style that author was using. I forget his name, but he's a lot of just very common writing methods that still hold true to this day. He's like his use of long paragraphs when he's describing something chaotic, so that it reads as chaotic while it's describing something chaotic. Like that's a tried and true method of writing.
I mean, you got that a little bit here too, though, with the long paragraphs and the run-on sentences. So I'm not saying that they were the same. I'm just saying, I guess more the tone of it.
Yeah, I think like Sliced Bread's a coming of age story. Like coming of age stories, it doesn't matter when it was written. Like people enjoy those kinds of stories, whereas this is more of a we call it tragic hero kind of story, where sometimes like your hero's not that great of a person. Like I don't know, like think about like Macbeth, like that. Like he's a terrible person throughout that entire play. He's probably really the only awful character you can read and like feel any empathy for. Not even so, but just like I don't know, it's just a cool action story. But like you can kind of compare this to Macbeth, where just like he has these delusions of grandeur and it undoes him in the end. It's like one of those like tragic heroes where the character flaw is extreme hubris, and it leads to his undoing.
Yeah, the story is definitely problematic. A lot of the characters are two-dimensional, and I mean maybe that was done purposely because it is told through Rojak's mind, and that's how he's viewing everybody as two-dimensional, because that's basically he's the only real person out there, and everyone else is just there for him to use and abuse as he feels fit.
Yeah, all the characters are just told in relation to him and how they can benefit him.
But he definitely does not spoon feed this to you. It makes you work, make you have to think about it. You're definitely trying to draw from all your experiences to try to find those connections that the author is trying to put out there.
And like the message it's like pretty straightforward once you get a grip on it. It's like, isn't the American dream fame and fortune, or is it having productive and meaningful relationships with people? 'Cause that's something that Rojak never really gets to experience, is a meaningful relationship.
Yeah, and it's asking, is the American dream even real and worth it? Is it only serving certain people, and most other people don't get to actually see that, but the ones that do get the American dream, quote unquote, is it really all that great to be once they get it? Because you look at every one of these characters, and they're all kind of despicable in some way or another.
Yeah, and like Rojak Mailer, like he's like got especially into like wartime stories, and like this is what we're fighting for, this American dream. So like, what are we fighting for? Like he fought in World War II. He covered Vietnam quite extensively. Like I think Vietnam was just beginning by the time this book came out, but like Korea had happened already. So I think he's disillusioned with what the American dream actually was at that time, and it might be currently. Just trying to, like, is it worth it to be rich and famous? Or is that just a lost cause in the end?
Alex, now that we're rich and famous from this podcast, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I'm not really going to ask all my questions because we've already basically hit on. I didn't have a ton of them, and we basically hit on them pretty hard already. But I did
just
read.
Like Rojak hits on the ladies.
Yeah, just hits them in general. But so I was reading a lot of the reviews before I read this, which is always a mistake, FYI, because it ruins. Even if you're trying to read the ones that don't give you a full-on description of the book, it kind of just ruins, you're going into it, what you're expecting. But a lot of people I felt, even before I read the book, knowing what I was going to be going into it, I felt like they were missing something. It was kind of like, when people insult or go against reading Huckleberry Finn, they get uptight about the language and the way the characters are treated, and they say how racist it all was, and they missed the point. I feel like a lot of people kind of missed the point. Like they're saying, oh, so sad the rich white guy's having a bad time and gets away with murder. It's like on a very surface level, yeah, that is true, but at the same time, you have to dig deeper. And as we said, there is a message in there, and it's not poor white guy gets away with murder. It's what is the American dream. As we said, Mailer just says it's all shit, but doesn't give us an alternative. But I guess, Alex, what are your opinions of the criticisms, and do you think they're justified? And is this book just an outdated embarrassment of a literary past that is best forgotten, as a lot of these Goodreads critics would say we should do?
No, I still think it's like an important aspect of literature to read. And it does sound like if you think this is just like this, survival story about a bad guy trying to live, like, you're mistaken. Like, there's way much more subtext in this story. Mailer's just trying to hold up he's not holding up a mirror to like any one particular person. He's holding up a mirror to society in general and asking you, like, is this actually what you want?
It's kind of like the comedian from Watchmen.
Exactly.
Yeah. For all you nerds out there.
I feel like comedian's not a good enough or well-known enough reference. Just like, yeah, he's like, yeah, you're mocking this thing, but also it's deeply meaningful to you, and it's offensive to you in many ways. I think Mailer should still be read in an academic setting. It doesn't, like, I think just casual reading, you're going to miss a lot. I read him in college, so I got a lot of, we had a lot of big discussions. We had a professor who guided it. And it was this whole thing. And we also read a lot of his works. We read two of his fiction books. We read two of his nonfiction books. So you got a really good feel for his views on life. And, like, if you want to learn history, the best way to do it is to read people who actually lived it. And Mailer lived a lot of history. It was like he ran for office. He chronicled a lot of the countercultural movement and a lot of the wars that happened throughout the 20th century. So he's a great person to read if you are looking for that kind of view on life. I do wish, like we keep saying, he didn't propose a lot of solutions, but I think it's also important to have people that point out the flaws in society. And then maybe other people can propose the solutions. I don't know, and you just need critics in general. You got to question everything that happens, because people in power are often a lot like Stephen Rojak. They're just people, and they are flawed, and they have misconstrued beliefs.
All the conspiracy theorists say that all this is planned by like a few masterminds.
Yeah, we're gonna flag for fake news now. Thanks. Yeah, the masterminds will be like, no, there's no masterminds. I'm just another guy. I jump into my pants 2 legs at a time, just like you guys.
Yeah, you gotta be efficient.
Yeah, the time he saved, putting on his pants 2 legs at a time, he used to take over the world.
Hey, that's 0.8 seconds of every day that adds up, Alex.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's like you save $10 a day. That's $12,000 a day. I don't know, stupid things like you don't buy avocado toast, you'll be able to buy a house in 5 years. I don't know. Yeah, we're millennials, so we're not bitter about it.
Yeah, so we're the generation that everyone shits on.
It's good times.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I kind of was thinking is thinking back to the criticisms and when the time of this was written. Rojak has obviously got depression issues, got probably some other mental health issues going on, and something that Stephen Fry said in an interview for a documentary, at least I think it was attributed to him anyways, but he was talking about depression and saying, yeah, it doesn't matter, I'm paraphrasing here, but saying, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're the wealthiest man in the world with the most friends and whatever, if you're depressed, you still feel alone. And it's like, so I was like, yeah, Rojak is highly successful, has the world at his fingertips. He goes through mental problems and he's brought down just like everybody else. It doesn't matter what his station was. And yeah, maybe he doesn't fall into prison like he should have because of his station, but he still basically, as he said, loses everything, and he's basically just in Guatemala bumming along being a hobo. So, is that really any better than, being locked up and quote unquote paying for a crime?
Yeah, like could Deborah have been saved? Could Rojak have been saved if there were things in place to save them that weren't there in that era?
Yeah, so it's just food for thought, not condoning or anything this book or
again we're offering criticisms, we're not offering solutions.
Hoorah, kill them all.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this book, and it can be a big downer when you start talking about what are we living for, and that's kind of what Norman Mailer was trying to ask us, what's the point of you? Yeah, this is what you guys are going for, and it's awful. So why do you what's going on?
Granted, it's a kind of a nihilistic view of the world, and
very cynical, very pretentious.
Yeah, and that can definitely have its problems too. Where again, you don't necessarily have to have the solution, but to only give the problem and say that there is no solution is a problem.
Those are always the worst people to hang out with at parties.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They wear out their welcome after the first 5 minutes. So, bye, Alex.
All right. What's your next question?
That was it.
That was it?
I got. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I had 4 other questions, but we kind of went through them hard enough. I'm not gonna make us have to hash through it again.
Okay.
So yeah, you have any other comments, Alex?
I mean, I won't give up on Norman Mailer. It might be a while before I pick it back up. I do want to reread The Naked and the Dead and The Executioner's Song again. I had a couple others. He has a really great, if you're into nonfiction, he has a really great coverage of the Muhammad Ali George Foreman fight. It's called The Fight, and it's really well done. That's a great story. You get he does great. I won't say character development because they were real people, but great development of both George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, and the cultural significance of that fight in American society. So that's a really good one. If you're looking for other Norman Mailers, he's got a lot of good stuff. He really does.
Yeah, don't judge this book or this author on this one book here. I mean, judge him on other things, but
yeah, you can. I would definitely condemn him as a person, but his writing, I think even if it is dated, it's still a good. I think it's one of the better things you'll find from the 40s through the, I guess, 80s. I don't know if he wrote some stuff after that, but I think that's kind of when he started coasting on his own fame.
His laurels.
Yeah, his laurels. Yeah, The Executioner's Song. It's up there with In Cold Blood as far as true crime stories go. It's very, very good.
Well, thank you, Alex, for that painful story.
Yeah, no problem.
Hopefully.
What's your new painful story?
Well, this is going to be slightly more uplifting, and that, well, the good guys are actually kind of sort of good.
I don't know. I've started reading the book. For good guys, they sure kill a lot of people.
Well, when you find out why, you feel like, okay, it's justified. ish. So the book I'm going to do is a retelling story.
A twisted retelling.
Yeah. It's called Alice by Christina Henry, and it is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. This is not for children, FYI.
I think you mean The Adventures of Alice in Wonderland.
Sure, yes. It's the childhood novel and Disney movie that you so much love. Yeah, this is not that. This is very... This is going to be another wallop to the groin. So
it's
be prepared.
Yeah, I feel like over-the-top violence and explorations of mental health and the treatment of men and women. We will dive into that rabbit hole next month. See what I did there?
Yeah. Very good, Alex. Very clever. You spend the last week thinking about that one?
I was driving down. I'm like, what's a pun I can make for Alice in Wonderland? It's got to be something.
So yeah, that'll be my book next month. We will have a bonus book for this first month also. Becky was forced into it, so
she's super stoked.
Yeah, she's so happy about it right now. She's like, Joe, please just post this early. Don't delete it, whatever you do. Please delete it. No, it'll be good. So it'll be an interesting episode. I finished editing it already, so.
He's excited to tell you, but we're not going to tell you because we don't talk about bonus episodes until after they happen.
Yeah,
they're a surprise.
But yeah, that'll be on the 20th of the month that you listen to this. So subscribe.
Yeah, that's coming out August, right?
It is August.
It is August
Alex.
now.
This is coming out.
I'm editing this episode. We'll cut that out. Coming out September.
Coming out in September. Don't cut that out, Alex. That just makes you sound so amazing.
Yeah, don't work a full-time job and podcast.
Yeah, just work a full-time job because the podcasting you will go hungry.
Yeah, don't podcast.
Especially if it's just book reviews because hi mom.
Yeah, you get random texts from your friends saying sometimes it's hard to be your friend after they listen to your episode.
Oh, you get texts from friends that listen to these things?
Oh yes.
Oh really? Who?
Yeah.
I get nothing. I just see like, oh, it looks like another person from New Hampshire downloaded it. But you see there, Alex just trying to boost our numbers, or our mom trying to, be supportive of us.
Yeah. No, actually, it was my boss texted me that. She's like,
she listened. That's even better.
Yeah, she listened to an episode and texted me like, sometimes it's hard to be your friend.
So yeah. Anyways, you can get a hold of us if you would wish. We have an email. KendallBookworms@gmail.com. We are on Instagram at KendallBookworms. DM us there. If you listen to this on Spotify or Apple, please leave us a rating and review. Leave us comments. I enjoy reading those every once in a while. I'll put a poll up. So look for those. Let's see what else we got. We're on YouTube. You can listen to us there if you would like. If that is your preferred method, that's seems to be. We have a handful of people streaming that, Alex. I don't know. Yeah, some days it's we got a whole 10 people, and other days we got 1. So I don't know what's up with that. We're on all the major podcast apps. We are hosted by Podbean. We have a website there. The link will be in the description. Alex has some books.
Paul Plimpton versus Ragnarok.
Yeah. Those other books going to get republished anytime soon, Alex?
They are in progress.
In progress for the next 3 years.
Something like that.
There'll be a George R. R. Martin kind of process going on here.
It takes me a long time to do stuff. Like I said, I work full time and I got stuff going on.
Yeah, lately excuses. Really, we keep Alex in the basement, locked in the basement. We feed him regularly twice a week. and he's supposed to just be writing and reading and coming up with this stuff. I don't know why he can't produce. We change the piss pot at least once a month. I mean, come on.
If you want Winds of Winter to come out, that's what you need to do.
What else we got going, Alex? Anything?
I think that's about it.
That's about it. Okay.
Yeah. So
tell your friends and family to listen to us. Share us on your social medias to try to get us out there. We do have a Facebook page. I don't really do anything with it. Someone wants to do something with it, please do. So then we'll make that more of an effort.
Yeah, if you start posting on Facebook, we'll start
Stalking you.
paying attention on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we got. So that was An American Dream by Norman Mailer. See you next time for Alice by Christina Henry. Till next time, I'm Alex.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Bookworms.
Oh.